She was standing on the bridge in the rain when Nathan saw her, hands gripping the railing like it was the only thing keeping her from disappearing. He should have kept walking. He had his daughter waiting at home, bills stacked on the kitchen counter, and a long shift behind him that left his legs aching. But something in the way she stood there, so still, so far past crying, made him stop. He'd been that empty once. He knew what it looked like when someone was deciding whether tomorrow mattered. So instead of walking past, he stepped closer and said the only thing that felt true. "I'm not leaving you here alone." That was the moment everything changed, for both of them. If you want to see how a single night on a bridge became the beginning of something neither of them expected, stay with me until the end. And when you're done, hit like and drop a comment with the city you're watching from. I want to see how far this story travels. Nathan Cole had learned a long time ago that grief didn't announce itself. It just showed up one day and moved in, rearranging everything until you didn't recognize your own life anymore. He was 32, though some mornings he felt twice that. His daughter, Emma, was 6 years old, bright-eyed and stubborn in the way only kids who'd lost a parent too young could be. She had her mother's smile, wide and unguarded, and every time Nathan saw it, something in his chest tightened and loosened all at once. It had been 3 years since Sarah died. A car accident on a wet highway, the kind of tragedy that felt both random and inevitable, like the universe flipping a coin and deciding his life needed to be split cleanly in half, before and after. Nathan had spent the first year in a fog so thick he could barely see Emma through it. He went to work at the warehouse, came home, microwaved something that passed for dinner, and sat on the couch while his daughter colored at the coffee table. He didn't cry much. He didn't feel much of anything, really, just a dull, persistent ache that never quite went away. But Emma had needed him, and eventually that need pulled him back into the world, one small step at a time. Now, 3 years later, Nathan had settled into a rhythm. It wasn't happiness, exactly, but it was functional. He worked the evening shift at Millbrook Logistics, loading trucks and managing inventory. The pay wasn't great, but it was steady, and his boss let him leave early when Emma's school called. Mornings were for her. Breakfast, backpack checks, walking her to the bus stop. Evenings were a scramble of dinner, homework, and bedtime stories. Somewhere in between, Nathan tried to remember what it felt like to be a person and not just a father in survival mode. Millbrook itself was a small industrial city, the kind of place people moved to for work and left when the work dried up. It rained a lot. The buildings were gray, the streets were gray, and the sky hung low most days like it couldn't be bothered to lift. Nathan had lived here his whole life, and he'd stopped noticing the bleakness a long time ago. It was just background noise now. The apartment he shared with Emma was small but clean, 2 bedrooms on the second floor above a laundromat that smelled perpetually of detergent and dryer sheets. Emma's room was covered in drawings she'd taped to the walls, elaborate scenes of princesses and dinosaurs that somehow coexisted in her 6-year-old imagination. Nathan's room was sparse. A bed, a dresser, a pile of unread books on the nightstand that he kept telling himself he'd get to eventually. Money was tight. It was always tight. Nathan had learned to stretch every dollar, shopping at discount grocery stores, buying Emma's clothes secondhand, skipping things he wanted so she could have what she needed. There were nights when he lay awake doing mental math, calculating whether he could afford new shoes for her or if the ones she had could last another month. He never let her see him worry. That was the rule he'd set for himself early on. Emma got to be a kid. She didn't need to carry his stress. His sister Rachel helped when she could. She lived 2 hours away with her husband and their 3 kids, but she called every week and sent boxes of hand-me-downs that Emma loved. Rachel had been the one who kept Nathan alive in those first terrible months after Sarah died. She'd shown up at his door with groceries, sat with him while he stared at the wall, taken Emma for weekends, when Nathan couldn't get out of bed. He owed her more than he could ever repay. Tonight the rain was coming down hard, drumming against the pavement in a steady, relentless rhythm. Nathan's shift had run late, some mix-up with a shipment that wasn't his fault but somehow became his problem, and by the time he clocked out, it was past 10. He pulled his jacket tighter and started the walk home, cutting through the industrial district toward the older part of town, where he and Emma lived. The quickest route took him across the old rail bridge that spanned the Millbrook River. It wasn't much of a river anymore, just a shallow, sluggish channel that flooded every spring and smelled faintly of rust and oil. The bridge was a relic from the city's better days, back when trains still ran through and factories hummed around the clock. Now it was mostly used by people on foot, a shortcut between neighborhoods that didn't have much to offer each other. Nathan had walked this bridge 1,000 times. He knew every crack in the concrete, every patch of rust on the railings. On clear nights, you could see the lights from the old downtown district reflected in the water, but tonight the rain blurred everything into streaks of gray and yellow. He was halfway across when he saw her. At first, he almost didn't. The rain blurred everything, and the streetlights along the bridge cast long, distorted shadows. But then he noticed the shape of her, a woman standing near the railing, motionless, her hands gripping the metal bar in front of her. She wasn't looking at the water below. She was just standing there, head down, shoulders hunched, like she'd run out of places to go. Nathan slowed. His instinct was to keep walking. It wasn't his business. People stood on bridges all the time. Maybe she was waiting for someone. Maybe she just needed a minute alone. He didn't know her, didn't owe her anything, and he had a daughter at home who was probably still awake even though she shouldn't be. But something stopped him. It was the way she was holding the railing. Not casually, not like someone just resting, but like it was the only thing keeping her upright. Her knuckles were white, her body tense in a way that made Nathan's chest tighten. He'd seen that posture before. He'd been that posture before, back when Sarah first died, and he'd spent nights sitting on the bathroom floor, gripping the edge of the tub just to have something solid to hold on to. He didn't think. He just walked over. "Hey," he said, keeping his voice low and even. "You okay?" The woman didn't move, didn't look up. For a second, Nathan thought she might not have heard him over the rain, but then she spoke, her voice flat and distant. "I'm fine." She wasn't fine. Nathan didn't need to see her face to know that. He stepped a little closer, close enough to see the rain streaming down her hair, soaking through her coat. She was younger than him, maybe late 20s, dressed in clothes that looked expensive but disheveled, like she'd been wearing them for days without caring. A tailored blazer that hung crooked on her shoulders, designer jeans stained with something that might have been coffee. Her hands trembled slightly on the railing. "I'm Nathan," he said. "I'm not trying to bother you. He paused, searching for the right words. "I'm not going to leave you here alone." That got her attention. She turned her head slightly, just enough for him to see her profile. Her face was pale, eyes red-rimmed and exhausted, dark circles underneath them like she hadn't slept in days. She looked at him like he was speaking a language she didn't understand. "Why not?" she asked. Nathan didn't have a good answer for that. He shrugged, rain dripping off the brim of the baseball cap he wore. "Because I've been where you are, and I know how it feels when everyone just walks past." She stared at him for a long moment, rain dripping off her chin. Then she looked back at the water. "You don't know anything about me." "You're right," Nathan said. "I don't. But I know what it looks like when someone's running on empty, and I know standing out here in the rain isn't going to fix whatever's going on." She let out a sharp, bitter laugh that got swallowed by the storm. "Nothing's going to fix it." Nathan didn't argue. He just leaned against the railing a few feet away, giving her space but not leaving. The rain kept falling, cold and relentless, soaking through his jacket and into his work shirt underneath. He could feel the chill settling into his bones, but he didn't move. "I'm Lena," she said finally, her voice barely audible over the storm. "Nice to meet you, Lena." She shook her head slowly, like she was disagreeing with something only she could hear. "You shouldn't have stopped." "Probably not," Nathan admitted. "But here we are." They stood there in silence for a while, the rain pounding around them. Nathan didn't push. He didn't ask what was wrong or try to talk her down with empty platitudes about how things would get better. He just stayed, solid and present, because he remembered how much it had meant when someone did that for him once. His sister, in the weeks after Sarah died, had shown up at his door with groceries and refused to leave until he ate something. She hadn't tried to fix him. She'd just been there. It was the only thing that helped. Eventually, Lena spoke again. "I used to run a company," she said, her voice distant, like she was talking about someone else's life. "I built it from nothing. Spent 10 years of my life on it, every hour, every dollar, every piece of myself I had to give. And then," she stopped, her jaw tightening. "Then someone bigger came along and took it. Legal, clean, just business, they said. But it was mine, and now it's gone. And I don't know who I am without it." Nathan didn't respond right away. He let her words settle, understanding the weight of them. He'd felt that same disorientation after Sarah died. That sense of waking up in a life that didn't fit anymore, wearing a role he didn't know how to play. Losing something you built, he said slowly, carefully. That's not the same as losing a person, but it's still losing part of yourself. I get that. Lena looked at him, something flickering in her eyes. Surprise, maybe, or recognition, like she hadn't expected him to understand. You said you've been where I am, she said. What happened to you? Nathan hesitated. He didn't talk about Sarah much, not with strangers, not with anyone really except Rachel, and even then only when he had to. But standing here in the rain with this woman who looked like she was barely holding herself together, it felt wrong to hold back. My wife died 3 years ago, he said quietly. Car accident. 1 minute she was here, the next she wasn't. Left me with our daughter and no idea how to keep going. I spent a long time thinking I couldn't, but I had to, so I did. Lena's expression softened, just a little. The hard edges around her eyes eased. I'm sorry. Me too, Nathan said, for whatever you're going through. She looked down at her hands, still gripping the railing like it might slip away if she let go. I don't think I can do this anymore. Nathan's heart clenched, but he kept his voice steady. He'd learned in those dark months after Sarah that panic didn't help anyone. You don't have to do it tonight. You just have to not do anything permanent. That's all. Just get through tonight. And then what? Lena asked, her voice breaking. Get through tomorrow? And the next day? When does it stop feeling like this? I don't know, Nathan said honestly. It's different for everyone. But it does get easier. Not all at once. Just in pieces. Little moments where it doesn't hurt as bad. And then those moments get longer. Lena closed her eyes, tears mixing with the rain on her face. I don't have anyone. No family. No friends who stuck around after everything fell apart. It's just me. Nathan didn't have a fix for that. He couldn't give her a family or undo whatever had happened to her company. But he could give her this moment. You're not alone right now, he said. And if you need someone to sit with you until the worst of it passes, I can do that. Lena looked at him, really looked at him, like she was trying to decide if he was real or some kind of hallucination brought on by exhaustion and despair. Then, slowly, she let go of the railing. Her hands dropped to her sides, shaking. I don't even know you, she whispered. I know, Nathan said, but sometimes that makes it easier. They stood there for another few minutes, and then Nathan gestured toward the end of the bridge. There's a diner a few blocks from here. It's nothing fancy, but it's warm and dry. You want to get out of the rain? Lena hesitated. He could see her weighing it, debating whether to trust this stranger who'd appeared out of nowhere. Then she nodded, just once. They walked in silence, side by side, the rain still coming down but feeling a little less heavy now. Nathan kept his hands in his pockets, his stride easy and unhurried. He didn't want to spook her, didn't want her to feel pressured. This had to be her choice. The diner was a 24-hour place called Rosie's, the kind of spot with cracked vinyl booths and fluorescent lights that buzzed too loud. The smell of coffee and old grease hit them as soon as they walked in. A waitress glanced up from behind the counter, a woman in her 50s with tired eyes and a stained apron, barely interested. Sit anywhere, she called out, her voice flat with routine. They slid into a booth near the window, the vinyl squeaking under them. Nathan ordered coffee for both of them, and when it came, thick, black, probably sitting in the pot for hours, Lena wrapped her hands around the mug like she was trying to absorb its warmth. For a few minutes, neither of them spoke. The diner was mostly empty except for a truck driver at the counter and a couple of teenagers in a corner booth who looked like they were killing time. The fluorescent lights flickered overhead, casting everything in a harsh, unforgiving glow. Thank you, Lena said finally, her voice quiet. Nathan shrugged. You don't have to thank me. I do, Lena insisted. You didn't have to stop. Most people wouldn't have. Most people don't know what it's like, Nathan said. I do. Lena took a sip of her coffee, wincing at the bitterness. She set the mug down and stared at it like it might have answers. You said you have a daughter? Yeah, Emma. She's 6. That must be hard, doing it alone. It is, Nathan admitted. He ran a hand through his wet hair, pushing it back from his forehead. But she's the reason I'm still here. She needed me. So I figured out how to show up. Lena looked down at her mug, her fingers tracing the rim. I don't have that. I don't have a reason. You don't need one tonight, Nathan said. You just need to be here. The rest will come. They sat there for a long time, talking in fits and starts. The conversation came in waves, long silences punctuated by sudden bursts of words, like Lena was letting pieces of herself leak out slowly, testing to see if it was safe. She told him more about her company, a tech startup called Bridge Learn, focused on educational software for underprivileged kids. She'd started it when she was 23, fresh out of college, and burning with the kind of idealism that made people either change the world or crash spectacularly. For Lena, it had been both. "I wanted to make something that mattered," she said, her voice gaining strength as she talked. "Not just another app or platform. Something that actually helped kids who didn't have access to good schools or tutors. We partnered with community centers, libraries, schools in low-income areas, and it worked. The software was good. The kids loved it. Teachers saw real results." "So what happened?" Nathan asked. Lena's face darkened. "I ran out of money. Grants dried up. Investors wanted faster returns than an education nonprofit could deliver. I was scrambling, trying to keep the lights on, and then Apex Education made an offer. They're this massive corporate training company, the kind that does those useless professional development seminars. They said they wanted to acquire us, keep the mission alive, give us resources to scale. But they didn't," Nathan said. "No." Lena's voice turned bitter. "They gutted it, took the software, repackaged it as a premium product for private schools, and killed all the community programs. Everything I built to help kids who needed it most, gone. And legally, there was nothing I could do. I'd signed the contracts, took the buyout because I thought I was saving the company, but I was just handing it over to be destroyed." Nathan listened, watching the way her hands clenched around the coffee mug. "That's not your fault." "It is, though," Lena said. "I should have seen it coming, should have fought harder, should have found another way. But I was desperate, and I made a choice, and now it's over." "You were trying to keep something you cared about alive," Nathan said. "That's not the same as giving up." "Feels like it," Lena muttered. Nathan leaned back in the booth, the vinyl creaking under him. "You know what I learned after Sarah died? You can do everything right and still lose. You can make all the smart choices, fight as hard as you can, and it still doesn't matter. Sometimes things just fall apart. And it's not fair and it's not your fault and it still hurts like hell. But it doesn't mean you failed." Lena looked at him, her eyes glassy. "How do you live with that?" "One day at a time," Nathan said. "Some days are okay, some days are terrible. You just keep showing up." They talked for another hour, the conversation drifting from heavy to light and back again. Lena asked about Emma, what she was like, what she loved, how Nathan managed being both parents at once. Nathan found himself talking more than he usually did, telling stories about Emma's obsession with dinosaurs, the way she insisted on wearing mismatched socks because she liked the colors, how she'd started asking questions about her mom that he didn't always know how to answer. "She asks if I miss her," Nathan said quietly. "Sarah, I mean. And I tell her yes every day, and then she asks if it's okay that she doesn't remember her as much anymore. And I don't know what to say to that." "What do you tell her?" Lena asked. "I tell her it's okay," Nathan said, "that she was so little when it happened, it makes sense that the memories fade. And I tell her I'll remember for both of us, that I'll tell her stories so she knows who her mom was." Lena's eyes filled with tears. "You're a good father." Nathan shook his head. "I'm just trying not to screw her up too bad." "That's what good fathers do," Lena said softly. By the time they left the diner, it was past midnight. The rain had slowed to a drizzle, and the streets were empty, slick and shining under the streetlights. Nathan walked Lena to her car, a sleek black sedan parked a few blocks away that looked out of place in this part of town. "Are you going to be okay?" he asked. Lena looked at him, exhausted but calmer than she'd been on the bridge. The wild panic in her eyes had settled into something quieter, sadder, but manageable. "I don't know. But I'll get through tonight, like you said." Nathan nodded. "That's enough." She opened her car door, then paused, one hand on the frame. Can I have your number? Just in case." Nathan hesitated for half a second, then pulled out his phone. They exchanged numbers, thumbs tapping against cracked screens, and Lena gave him a small, fragile smile. "Thank you, Nathan," she said again. "Take care of yourself, Lena." He watched her drive away, taillights disappearing into the drizzle, then turned and headed home. The walk felt longer than usual, his legs heavy with exhaustion and the weight of the night. He thought about Lena, about the way she'd looked on that bridge, and wondered if she'd be okay. He hoped so. But he also knew that hope wasn't always enough. Emma was asleep when he got there, curled up on the couch with her favorite blanket, a threadbare thing with cartoon elephants that she'd had since she was a baby. Nathan scooped her up gently, careful not to wake her, and carried her to her room. She stirred slightly, mumbling something about dinosaurs, then settled back into sleep. He tucked her in, pulling the blanket up to her chin, and brushed a strand of hair off her forehead. He stood there for a moment, watching her breathe in the quiet dark. This was what kept him going. This small person who trusted him completely, who needed him to be steady even when he felt like he was falling apart. He didn't know if he'd ever hear from Lena again. Maybe she'd wake up tomorrow and decide she didn't need some stranger's pity. Maybe she'd be fine on her own. But as Nathan stood in the doorway of his daughter's room, watching Emma sleep, he felt something he hadn't felt in a long time. He felt like maybe, just maybe, he'd done something that mattered. And for tonight, that was enough. The next morning, Nathan woke up to Emma bouncing on his bed, her small hands tugging at his arm with the kind of enthusiasm only 6-year-olds possessed before coffee. "Dad! Dad! Wake up! You're going to make me late!" Nathan groaned and squinted at the clock through blurry eyes. 7:30. Not late, but close. He dragged himself out of bed, every muscle in his body protesting the movement. The late night was catching up to him. All right, I'm up," he muttered, stumbling toward the kitchen. Emma was already pulling bowls out of the cabinet, humming to herself. She'd picked out her outfit, purple leggings with orange dinosaurs and a pink shirt that had a sequined unicorn on it. Fashion was not her strong suit, but Nathan had learned to pick his battles. He poured cereal, made sure she ate most of it instead of just picking out the marshmallow pieces, and got her backpack ready. The usual morning chaos. Shoes that had mysteriously migrated to opposite ends of the apartment, a homework folder that needed a signature. Emma's insistence that she absolutely had to bring her stuffed brachiosaurus to school for show and tell, even though show and tell wasn't until Friday. "Can we bring Mr. Longneck?" she asked, holding up the dinosaur. "Not today, kiddo. Friday." "But what if I forget him on Friday?" "Then I'll remind you," Nathan said, zipping up her backpack. They walked to the bus stop together, Emma chattering the whole way about a project her class was doing on the solar system. She'd been assigned Venus and was very excited to inform Nathan that it was the hottest planet, not Mercury like he'd thought. "Venus has a really thick atmosphere," she explained seriously, swinging his hand as they walked. "So the heat gets trapped. It's like a greenhouse." "That's pretty cool," Nathan said. "It's actually really hot," Emma corrected him, and Nathan laughed despite his exhaustion. The bus pulled up, and Emma gave him a quick hug before climbing aboard. Nathan watched until it pulled away, then trudged back to the apartment. He had a few hours before his shift started, and he should have been sleeping, but his mind kept drifting back to the night before. To Lena, standing on that bridge, looking like the world had run out of reasons to keep her in it. He hoped she was okay. He hoped she'd meant it when she said she'd get through the night. He collapsed on the couch and managed to sleep for about 2 hours before his alarm went off. Then it was time to get ready for work. Shower, clean shirt, the same routine he'd followed for 3 years. The warehouse shift was long and monotonous, but it kept his mind occupied. Loading boxes, scanning inventory, moving pallets with the forklift. Physical labor that left him too tired to think too much. He didn't hear from Lena that day. Or the next. And Nathan told himself that was fine. He'd done what he could. The rest was up to her. People didn't owe you updates on their recovery just because you'd helped them once. Maybe she'd found a therapist, talked to a friend, figured things out on her own. That would be good. That would be the best outcome, actually, her not needing him at all. But 3 days later, his phone buzzed during his lunch break. A text from an unknown number. "Hi, it's Lena. I just wanted to say thank you again. I don't know if I would have made it through that night without you." Nathan stared at the message for a long moment, sitting on a crate outside the warehouse loading dock. Around him, other workers smoked cigarettes and scrolled through their phones, but he barely noticed them. He typed back, "Glad you're still here. How are you doing?" The reply came a few minutes later. "Honestly, not great, but better than I was." Nathan didn't know what to say to that, so he just sent back, "That's something." There was a pause, then another message. "I've been thinking about what you said, about getting through one day at a time. It's harder than it sounds." "Yeah," Nathan typed. "It is." Another pause. Can I ask you something? How long did it take before you stopped feeling like you were just going through the motions? Nathan considered that, his thumbs hovering over the screen. It was a good question, one he'd asked himself plenty of times. I don't know if I ever completely stopped, he replied honestly. But somewhere along the way, the motions started to feel like life again, instead of just survival. Hard to say when that happened. Maybe 6 months. Maybe a year. It was gradual. A year, Lena wrote back. That sounds like forever. Some days it is, Nathan typed. Some days it's just tomorrow. You take it as it comes. Over the next few weeks, they texted sporadically. Lena didn't say much about what she was going through, and Nathan didn't push. Mostly they talked about small things, books, the weather, Emma's latest obsession with learning to read chapter books, even though most of them were still too hard for her. It was surface level, safe, but Nathan could tell Lena needed it. She needed something normal, something that didn't require her to explain or justify or fix herself. And honestly, Nathan found himself looking forward to her messages. It was nice to talk to another adult who understood what it felt like to have your life fall apart. Most of his conversations were with Emma or his coworkers, and while he loved his daughter, talking about Venus's atmosphere only went so far. Then, one afternoon, about 3 weeks after that night on the bridge, Lena called him. Not a text, an actual phone call. Nathan was in the middle of making grilled cheese for Emma when his phone rang, and he almost didn't answer. But he did. Hey, Lena said when he picked up, her voice uncertain. I know this is random, but do you want to meet up? Just for coffee or something? I could use the company. Nathan glanced at the clock. He had an hour before he needed to leave for work, and Emma was doing homework at the kitchen table. Yeah, he said. I can do that. Give me 20 minutes? Perfect. Same place as last time? Rosie's Works. He told Emma he'd be back soon, made sure she had everything she needed, and headed out. The walk to the diner took 15 minutes, and when he arrived, Lena was already there, sitting in the same booth they'd occupied that first night. She looked different, still tired, still carrying the weight of whatever she was going through, but cleaner, more put together. She was wearing jeans and a gray sweater instead of the rain-soaked coat, and her hair was pulled back in a ponytail. There was even a hint of color in her cheeks. Thanks for coming, she said as Nathan slid into the booth across from her. No problem. They ordered coffee, the same terrible burnt-tasting stuff, and for a few minutes, they just sat there in companionable silence. The diner was busier this time, the dinner rush just starting to pick up. The smell of frying burgers filled the air. I've been thinking a lot about what you said, Lena began, wrapping her hands around her mug. About getting through one day at a time, and about not trying to be the person I was before. Nathan nodded, waiting. I think I've been stuck, Lena continued, trying to figure out who I'm supposed to be now that I'm not the CEO, not the founder, not the person with all the answers, and I keep coming up empty, like there's nothing left. That's normal, Nathan said. When you lose something that big, it's like losing a limb. You keep reaching for it even though it's not there anymore. Lena's eyes met his. How did you do it? After your wife died? How did you figure out who you were supposed to be? Nathan let out a slow breath considering the question. I didn't really. Not in some big revelation way. I just focused on Emma, on being there for her, making breakfast, getting her to school, reading bedtime stories, all these little things that didn't feel like enough, but somehow were. And somewhere along the way, I stopped trying to be the person I was before, the guy with a wife and a plan, and just became this. A single dad. Someone who shows up even when he doesn't know what he's doing. It's not much, but it's enough. Lena was quiet for a moment, absorbing that. I don't have a kid to focus on. I don't have anything. You have time, Nathan said, and that's more than you had on the bridge. Lena smiled faintly, and it was the first real smile Nathan had seen from her, small but genuine. I guess that's true. They talked for another hour, the conversation flowing more easily this time. Lena told him she'd started seeing a therapist, someone her old business partner had recommended. It was hard, she said, sitting in that office and trying to explain why she felt like her life had ended when objectively she was fine. She had money from the buyout, a nice apartment, no real problems except the ones in her head. But that's the thing, she said. The therapist keeps saying it's not about objective problems. It's about how it feels. And it feels like I lost everything that mattered. Then that's real, Nathan said. Doesn't matter if someone else thinks you should be grateful for the money or whatever. If it feels like a loss, it is. Lena nodded slowly. That's what she said, too. It's just hard to believe it sometimes. Yeah, Nathan agreed. I know the feeling. When they finally left the diner, the sun was setting, painting the gray Millbrook sky in shades of orange and pink. Nathan walked Lena to her car again, and this time when she said goodbye, it felt less fragile, less like she might disappear. Same time next week? She asked. Sure, Nathan said. If you want. I do. And so it became a routine. Once a week, sometimes twice, they met at Rosie's. They talked about everything and nothing. Lena's therapy sessions, Emma's latest school projects, Nathan's frustration with his boss, Lena's attempts to figure out what came next. It was easy, comfortable, the kind of friendship that forms when two people have seen each other at their worst and decided to stick around anyway. Nathan didn't realize how much he'd started to look forward to those meetings until one week when Lena canceled at the last minute. Something about a family obligation she couldn't get out of, and he felt genuinely disappointed. It was strange having someone in his life again who wasn't Emma or his sister or a coworker he exchanged pleasantries with. Someone who knew about Sarah, about the hard parts, and didn't treat him like he was fragile because of it. And if Nathan was being honest with himself, Lena had become more than just someone he'd helped once. She'd become a friend, maybe even something more, though he wasn't ready to think about that too hard yet. For now, it was enough that she was still here, that they both were. And that felt like more than Nathan had any right to hope for. 2 months after that night on the bridge, Nathan's life had settled into a new pattern that included Lena in ways he hadn't anticipated. They met twice a week now, sometimes at Rosie's, sometimes at the small park near Emma's school, where they'd sit on a bench and watch kids play on the rusty swing set. Lena had started asking about Emma more, wanting to know the details of Nathan's days in a way that felt genuinely curious rather than polite. It was a Thursday afternoon in late September when everything shifted. Nathan was at the warehouse halfway through his shift when his phone rang. He almost ignored it. Personal calls during work weren't encouraged, but something made him check the screen. It was a number he didn't recognize, local area code. Hello? Mr. Cole? A woman's voice, professional and clipped. This is Principal Morrison from Millbrook Elementary. We need you to come pick up Emma. She's fine, but there's been an incident. Nathan's stomach dropped. What kind of incident? It's better if we discuss it in person. Can you come now? I'll be there in 15 minutes. He found his supervisor, made up something about a family emergency, and practically ran out of the building. The school was a 20-minute walk from the warehouse, but Nathan made it in 12, his heart pounding the entire way. Emma was sitting in the principal's office when he arrived, her face blotchy and tear-streaked. She looked up when Nathan walked in, and her bottom lip started trembling all over again. Dad, it's okay, sweetheart. Nathan crouched down next to her chair, putting a hand on her shoulder. Then he looked up at Principal Morrison, a stern-faced woman in her 50s who sat behind her desk with her hands folded. What happened? Emma got into a physical altercation with another student, Morrison said. She pushed a boy named Tyler Henderson off the jungle gym during recess. Nathan blinked. She pushed him? She's never done anything like that. Nevertheless, she did. Tyler scraped his knee and has some bruising on his arm. His parents have already been called. Nathan looked at Emma, who was staring at her shoes. Em, what happened? Why did you push Tyler? Emma's voice came out small and miserable. He said Mom didn't love me. The words hit Nathan like a punch to the chest. He took a breath, forcing himself to stay calm. What? Tyler said. Emma's voice broke. He said Mom left because she didn't love me, and that's why she died, because she wanted to get away from me. Nathan felt fury rising in his throat, hot and sharp. He looked at Morrison. And what did Tyler's teacher do when this happened? The teacher didn't hear the initial comment, Morrison said. She only saw Emma push Tyler. We don't tolerate violence, Mr. Cole, regardless of provocation. He told my 6-year-old daughter that her dead mother didn't love her, Nathan said, his voice dangerously quiet. And you're telling me she's the one in trouble? Morrison's expression didn't change. Both children will receive consequences. Tyler is being spoken to about his words. But Emma used physical force, and that requires a more serious response. She'll be suspended for the rest of the week. Nathan wanted to argue. wanted to tell this woman exactly what he thought of a system that punished a grieving kid for defending herself against cruelty. But he could see Emma watching him with wide, frightened eyes. So he swallowed it down. "Fine," he said. "We'll go." He took Emma's hand and led her out of the office, through the empty hallways that smelled of industrial cleaner and cafeteria food. Neither of them spoke until they were outside, standing on the sidewalk in front of the school. Then Emma burst into tears. Nathan knelt down and pulled her into a hug, letting her cry into his shoulder. "It's okay," he murmured. "You're okay. You didn't do anything wrong." "But I pushed him," Emma sobbed. "I'm not supposed to push." "No, you're not," Nathan agreed. "But what Tyler said was cruel and wrong, and I don't blame you for being angry. Your mom loved you more than anything in the world, Em. You know that, right?" Emma nodded against his shoulder, but she was still crying. "I miss her." "I know, me too." They stood there for a long moment, Nathan holding his daughter on the sidewalk while cars drove past, and the afternoon sun beat down on them. Eventually, Emma's sobs quieted into sniffles.
Come. Bimamo suiso maui.
"Yeah, sweetheart, we can go home." The walk back to the apartment felt longer than usual. Emma held Nathan's hand tightly, not saying much, and Nathan's mind was racing. He'd have to call his supervisor, explain why he couldn't come back to finish his shift. That probably meant losing a day's pay, maybe more if they decided to write him up. And Emma was suspended for 3 days, which meant he'd have to figure out childcare because he couldn't afford to miss that much work. But more than the logistics, Nathan was furious. Furious at Tyler Henderson, at the school system, at the universe for putting his daughter in a position where she had to defend her dead mother's memory on a playground. When they got home, Emma went straight to her room without being asked. Nathan heard the door close softly, and he stood in the middle of the kitchen, hands shaking with adrenaline and anger he had nowhere to put. He pulled out his phone and stared at it for a moment. Then, almost without thinking, he called Lena. She answered on the second ring. "Hey, is everything okay? I thought you were at work." "Can you talk?" Nathan asked, his voice tight. "Yeah, of course. What happened?" Nathan told her everything. The call from the school, what Tyler had said, Emma's suspension. The words came out in a rush, fueled by frustration and helplessness. When he finished, there was silence on the other end of the line. "Nathan," Lena said finally, her voice gentle. "Where are you right now?" "Home." "I'm coming over." "You don't have to—" "I'm coming over," Lena repeated, more firmly this time. "You shouldn't be dealing with this alone." She hung up before Nathan could argue. 20 minutes later, there was a knock on the door. Nathan opened it to find Lena standing there with a grocery bag in her arms. "I didn't know what you needed," she said, stepping inside. "So I grabbed some comfort food, mac and cheese, ice cream, those cookies Emma mentioned she likes." Nathan stared at her, something tight in his chest loosening slightly. "You didn't have to do that." "I know," Lena said. She set the bag on the kitchen counter and turned to face him. "How is she?" "In her room. She's been in there since we got home." "Do you want me to try talking to her?" Nathan hesitated. "I don't know if she's ready for that. She doesn't really know you yet." "That's fair," Lena said, "but sometimes it's easier to talk to someone who isn't your parent. Less pressure." Nathan considered that. It was true that Emma had always opened up more easily to his sister Rachel than to him sometimes. Maybe having another woman around, someone who wasn't carrying all of Nathan's grief and baggage, would help. "Okay," he said. "You can try." Lena walked down the short hallway to Emma's room and knocked softly. "Emma? It's Lena. Can I come in?" There was a pause, then a small voice. "Okay?" Lena opened the door and stepped inside. Nathan hovered in the hallway, close enough to hear but trying not to intrude. "Your dad told me what happened at school," Lena said. Her voice was calm, matter of fact. That sounds really hard. I shouldn't have pushed Tyler, Emma said, her voice muffled. Probably not, Lena agreed. But I bet you were really angry when he said that about your mom. Yeah. Can I tell you something? Okay. When I was your age, Lena said, a little older, maybe 8 or 9, there was this girl at my school named Madison. She was mean to everyone, but especially to me because my clothes were always secondhand and my mom couldn't afford the fancy stuff the other kids had. One day, Madison said my mom didn't care about me because if she did, she'd buy me better clothes. That's mean, Emma said. It was, Lena agreed, and I was so angry. I wanted to push her or yell at her or do something to make her hurt the way she'd hurt me. But I didn't. I just went home and cried. And you know what I wish I'd done instead? What? I wish I'd told someone. A teacher, my mom, anyone. Because keeping all that anger inside just made it worse. You actually did something about it. You stood up for yourself and your mom. And yeah, pushing wasn't the right choice, but being angry, that was completely fair. There was a long silence. Then Emma said, My mom did love me, right? Your mom loved you so much, Lena said without hesitation. I never met her, but I know your dad. And I know how much he loved her and how much he loves you. And people like your dad don't marry people who aren't full of love. Your mom loved you more than anything, Emma. Tyler was wrong. Nathan heard a sniffle, then another. He wanted to go in there, wanted to hold his daughter and tell Tyler Henderson's entire family exactly where they could shove their hurt feelings. But he stayed in the hallway, letting Lena handle it. Do you want to come have some ice cream? Lena asked after a moment. I bought the kind with the chocolate chunks. Okay, Emma said quietly. They emerged from this room together, Emma's eyes still red but her face a little less tight. She looked at Nathan, uncertain, and he smiled at her. You're not in trouble, Em, he said. Not with me. Emma ran over and hugged him, and Nathan wrapped his arms around her, breathing in the smell of her strawberry shampoo. The three of them sat at the small kitchen table, eating ice cream straight from the carton with mismatched spoons. It wasn't a solution to anything, but it was something. A small moment of normalcy in a day that had gone completely sideways. Lena stayed for dinner, Nathan made spaghetti, the one meal he could reliably cook without screwing up, and Emma warmed to her gradually. By the time they finished eating, Emma was telling Lena about her Venus project, complete with hand gestures to demonstrate the planet's thick atmosphere. And it spins backwards, Emma explained seriously, twirling her hand in the opposite direction. Not like Earth. That's fascinating, Lena said, and she actually sounded interested. Do you know why it spins backwards? Emma's face fell. No, I didn't read that part yet. Well, when you figure it out, you'll have to tell me. Emma grinned, the first real smile Nathan had seen from her all day. After dinner, Nathan put Emma to bed while Lena cleaned up the kitchen. When he came back out, she was drying the last of the dishes, her sleeves rolled up to her elbows. You didn't have to do that, Nathan said. I know, Lena replied, setting the dish towel aside. But I wanted to. They moved to the living room, sitting on opposite ends of the couch. The apartment was quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator and the occasional car passing on the street below. Thank you, Nathan said, for coming over, for talking to Emma. You didn't have to do any of that. Yes, I did, Lena said. She looked at him, her expression serious. You've been showing up for me for months now, Nathan. Let me return the favor. Nathan didn't know what to say to that, so he just nodded. They sat in comfortable silence for a while. Then Lena spoke again. Can I ask you something? Sure. Do you ever feel like you're just stuck? Like you're doing everything right, checking all the boxes, but you're not actually moving forward? Nathan considered that. Yeah, all the time. How do you deal with it? I don't know if I do, Nathan admitted. I just keep going because stopping isn't an option. Emma needs me to be functional, so I'm functional. But if you're asking if I figured out how to feel like I'm actually living instead of just surviving, no, I haven't. Lena nodded slowly. My therapist keeps asking me what I want. Not what I think I should want, but what I actually want. And I don't have an answer. I used to want the company, the success, all of it. But now, I don't know. Maybe that's okay, Nathan said, not knowing. Is it? I think so. You don't have to have it all figured out right now. You just have to figure out the next step. and then the one after that. Lena smiled faintly. You sound like my therapist. Well, she's probably smarter than me. I don't know about that. They talked for another hour, the conversation wandering from heavy topics to lighter ones and back again. Lena told him about her childhood, growing up in a small town in Ohio with a single mom who worked 2 jobs to keep them afloat. How she'd been the first person in her family to go to college, the first to start a business, the first to do a lot of things, and how the pressure of being the one who made it had felt both empowering and suffocating. I was supposed to be the success story, she said, the proof that hard work pays off, and when the company fell apart, it felt like I'd failed everyone. My mom, my teachers, everyone who believed in me. You didn't fail, Nathan said. You built something incredible. The fact that someone else destroyed it doesn't erase what you accomplished. Lena looked at him, her eyes shining slightly. How do you always know what to say? I don't, Nathan said honestly. Half the time I'm just guessing. Well, you're good at it. It was late by the time Lena left, close to 11. Nathan walked her down to her car, the streets quiet and dark except for the occasional streetlight. Thanks again, he said as she unlocked the door. For everything. Any time, Lena said. She hesitated, then added, You know, Emma's a great kid. You're doing a really good job with her. I'm trying, Nathan said. It shows. He watched her drive away, then headed back upstairs. The apartment felt different somehow, less empty than it usually did when Emma was asleep. Like Lena's presence had left something behind. Warmth, maybe? Or just the reminder that he didn't have to do this alone. The next morning, Nathan called his supervisor and explained the situation. To his surprise, his boss was understanding, gruff, but understanding. Family comes first, he said. Take the rest of the week. We'll work it out. Nathan spent the next 3 days with Emma. They went to the library, baked cookies that turned out lopsided and slightly burnt, and watched her favorite movies on the couch. It wasn't a vacation, exactly. Emma was still upset about what had happened at school, still asking questions about her mom that Nathan didn't always know how to answer. But it was time together. And that mattered. Lena texted him every day checking in. Nothing intrusive, just small messages asking how Emma was doing, if they needed anything. Nathan found himself looking forward to those texts more than he probably should. On Saturday, Lena showed up at the apartment again, this time with art supplies. I thought Emma might like a project, she explained, holding up a bag full of construction paper, markers, and glue. Something to keep her hands busy. Emma's eyes lit up when she saw the supplies, and for the next 2 hours, the 3 of them sat at the kitchen table making what Emma called space collages. Elaborate scenes of planets and stars and rocket ships constructed from cut-up paper and way too much glitter. Nathan watched Lena help Emma cut out a careful circle for Saturn, showing her how to hold the scissors at the right angle, and something in his chest shifted. It had been 3 years since Sarah died. 3 years of doing this alone, of being the only adult in Emma's life who showed up consistently. And here was Lena, someone who had no obligation to them, choosing to be here anyway. It scared him a little, how much he was starting to rely on her, how much Emma was starting to rely on her, but it also felt right. That night, after Emma went to bed and Lena was getting ready to leave, Nathan walked her to the door. You've been spending a lot of time here, he said, not quite looking at her. Is that a problem? Lena asked. No, Nathan said quickly. Not at all. I don't want you to feel obligated. Like you owe me something because of what happened on the bridge. Lena stepped closer, her expression serious. Nathan, I'm not here because I owe you. I'm here because I want to be. You and Emma, you're the most stable thing in my life right now, the only thing that feels real. Nathan met her eyes, seeing the honesty there. Okay. Okay? Yeah, just wanted to make sure. Lena smiled, and this time it reached her eyes. I'll see you next week? Yeah, next week. But it didn't take that long. 2 days later, on a Monday afternoon, Nathan's phone rang while he was at work. It was Lena, and she sounded shaken. Nathan, I'm sorry to call. Can you talk? Hold on. Nathan stepped outside the warehouse into the parking lot, away from the noise. What's wrong? There are photographers outside my apartment, Lena said, her voice tight. And reporters. Someone leaked photos of me from that night, from the bridge. Nathan's blood ran cold. What? I don't know how they got them. Security footage, maybe, or someone with a phone. But they're everywhere now. Online, social media, the local news. And the story, it's not just about the company anymore. It's about me. About how I had a breakdown, how I was standing on a bridge in the rain looking suicidal. Where are you right now? Nathan asked. In my apartment. I can't leave. They're all out there waiting. Nathan made a decision. Pack a bag. I'm coming to get you. Nathan, you don't have to. Pack a bag, Lena. You're not staying there alone. He hung up and went to find his supervisor. An hour later, Nathan pulled up in front of Lena's apartment building in his sister's borrowed car. His own had died 6 months ago, and he hadn't been able to afford to fix it. Sure enough, there were 3 people with cameras loitering near the entrance, along with a guy holding a microphone. Nathan texted Lena, "I'm here." Back entrance? Her reply came immediately. "Yes, I'll meet you there." He drove around to the back of the building and waited. A few minutes later, Lena emerged, wearing sunglasses and a baseball cap, a duffel bag over her shoulder. She looked around nervously before spotting Nathan's car and hurrying over. She threw the bag in the back and climbed into the passenger seat. Go. Nathan drove, taking a circuitous route to make sure no one was following them. Lena sat rigid in the seat next to him, her hands clenched in her lap. "I'm sorry," she said after a while. "I didn't know who else to call." "Don't apologize," Nathan said. "You did the right thing." They drove in silence for a few more minutes. Then Lena spoke again, her voice barely above a whisper. "They're calling it a suicide attempt. That's the angle. Former CEO has mental breakdown, nearly jumps off bridge. They're making it sound like I'm unstable, dangerous, like everything that happened with the company was my fault because I couldn't handle the pressure." "That's not true," Nathan said. "It doesn't matter if it's true," Lena said bitterly. "It's the story, and stories stick." Nathan wanted to argue, wanted to tell her it would blow over, but he knew she was right. Once the narrative took hold, it was almost impossible to shake. When they got back to Nathan's apartment, Emma was sitting on the couch watching cartoons. She looked up when they walked in, surprised. "Lena!" "Hey, Emma," Lena said, forcing a smile. "Is it okay if I stay here for a little while?" Emma looked at Nathan, who nodded. "Lena needs a place to hang out for a few days. That okay with you?" "Yeah," Emma bounced up from the couch. "You can sleep in my room. I have extra blankets." "Thanks, sweetheart," Lena said, "but I'll probably just use the couch." "You can have my bed," Nathan said. "I'll take the couch." "Nathan, not arguing about this," Nathan said firmly. "You're taking the bed." Lena looked like she wanted to protest, but she was too exhausted. She just nodded. That night, after Emma went to sleep, Nathan and Lena sat in the dim living room, the TV playing quietly in the background on mute. Lena had her laptop open, scrolling through articles and social media posts, her face getting paler with each passing minute. "Stop reading that," Nathan said gently. "I can't," Lena said. "I need to know what they're saying." "No, you don't. Not tonight." Lena closed the laptop with more force than necessary. "This is going to destroy what's left of my reputation. No one's going to want to work with me. No board will touch me. I'm done." "You're not done," Nathan said. "You're just going through something hard. There's a difference." "Is there?" Lena looked at him, her eyes red-rimmed. "Because from where I'm sitting, it feels pretty permanent." Nathan didn't have a good answer for that. So instead, he just moved to sit next to her on the couch, close enough that their shoulders touched. "You're going to get through this," he said quietly. "I don't know how yet, but you will." Lena leaned her head on his shoulder, and Nathan let her. They sat like that for a long time, not talking, just breathing in the quiet dark. And for the first time since that night on the bridge, Nathan wondered if maybe he'd found something he wasn't sure he'd been looking for, something that looked a lot like hope. The next morning, Nathan woke up on the couch with a crick in his neck and the sound of Emma's laughter filtering in from the kitchen. He sat up, disoriented for a moment, then remembered. Lena, the photographers, the leaked photos. He walked into the kitchen to find Emma and Lena making pancakes, or trying to. There was batter on the counter, on Emma's shirt, and somehow in Lena's hair. "Dad," Emma announced proudly, "Lena's teaching me how to flip them." "I can see that," Nathan said, surveying the mess. "How's it going?" "We've only burned 2, Lena said, and there was something lighter in her voice than there had been last night. "I'm calling that a win," Nathan poured himself coffee and watched them work. Emma was standing on a step stool, carefully pouring batter onto the griddle while Lena guided her hand. It was domestic in a way that made Nathan's chest tight. He couldn't remember the last time someone had helped him with breakfast, the last time Emma had laughed like this in the morning before school. After they ate, the pancakes were lopsided but edible, Nathan walked Emma to the bus stop while Lena stayed behind to clean up. On the way back, Nathan picked up his phone and saw 17 missed calls. 3 from unknown numbers, the rest from his sister Rachel. He called her back. "Nathan, what the hell is going on?" Rachel didn't even say hello. "I just saw the news. They're saying you're involved with some CEO who had a breakdown?" "It's complicated," Nathan said. "Then uncomplicate it. Who is she? And why are there reporters calling me asking about you?" Nathan stopped walking. "Reporters called you?" 3 of them. Asking about your relationship with Lena Hart, whether you knew her before the bridge incident, if you're being compensated for helping her. One of them asked if you were romantically involved. So I'll ask again, what the hell is going on? Nathan felt cold despite the morning sun. "I met her on the bridge that night. She was having a hard time. I helped. That's it." "That's not what they're implying," Rachel said. "They're making it sound like you're either a hero or taking advantage of a vulnerable woman. Maybe both." "I'm not taking advantage of anyone," Nathan said, his voice hard. "She's my friend. She needed help. I'm helping." Rachel was quiet for a moment. "Nathan, I know you. I know you want to help people, but this woman has baggage, big, public, messy baggage, and you have Emma to think about. You can't afford to get caught up in someone else's crisis." "I know what I'm doing," Nathan said, even though he wasn't entirely sure that was true. "Do you? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you're getting in over your head." Nathan didn't have a good response to that. "I have to go." "Nathan," he hung up. When he got back to the apartment, Lena was sitting at the kitchen table with her laptop open again, her face pale. "They found you," she said without looking up. "The reporters. They're running stories about you now. The warehouse worker who saved a CEO's life. They've got photos of you walking Emma to school. They called your work." Nathan's stomach dropped. "What?" "I'm sorry," Lena said, and she looked genuinely anguished. "I'm so sorry, Nathan. I never meant for this to touch you. I should have stayed away. I should have—" "Stop," Nathan said. He sat down across from her. "This isn't your fault." "It is, though. If I hadn't called you, if I hadn't come here, then you'd be dealing with this alone," Nathan said, "and I wouldn't have been able to live with that." Lena's eyes filled with tears. "You barely know me." "I know enough," Nathan said simply. They sat in silence for a moment. Then Lena's phone rang. She looked at the screen and her face went white. "It's my mother," she said. "Do you want to take it?" Lena stared at the phone like it might bite her. "I haven't talked to her in 6 months." "Why not?" "Because she told me the company was a waste of time, that I should have gotten a normal job, settled down, stopped trying to prove something. And when it fell apart, she said, 'I told you so,' and I haven't called her since." The phone kept ringing. Nathan reached over and declined the call. "You don't have to talk to anyone you're not ready to talk to," he said. Lena looked at him gratefully, but before she could respond, there was a knock at the door. Sharp, insistent. Nathan and Lena exchanged glances. "Stay here," Nathan said. He walked to the door and looked through the peephole. A woman in a blazer with a press badge stood in the hallway, camera crew behind her. Nathan opened the door just enough to be seen. "Can I help you?" "Mr. Cole? I'm Jennifer Reeves with Channel 7 News. We'd love to ask you a few questions about your relationship with Lena Hart." "No comment," Nathan said. "Just a few minutes of your time. The public is very interested in your story." "I said no comment." Nathan started to close the door, but the reporter stuck her foot in the gap. "Is Ms. Hart staying with you? Are you romantically involved?" "Get your foot out of my door," Nathan said, his voice dangerous. "The public has a right to know about Papak. The public has a right to mind their own business. Now leave before I call the police." The reporter finally stepped back and Nathan slammed the door. He could hear her talking to the camera crew in the hallway, her voice carrying through the thin walls. "That was brave," Lena said from behind him. She'd moved to stand in the kitchen doorway, her arms wrapped around herself. That was nothing, Nathan said. But his hands were shaking. The calls and knocks continued throughout the day. Nathan stopped answering both. By evening, there was a small cluster of reporters camped outside the building. The landlord called, annoyed, asking Nathan to handle his situation. Nathan wanted to scream. Instead, he made dinner, grilled cheese and tomato soup, the only thing he could manage without burning, while Lena sat at the table, working on her laptop with an intensity that seemed designed to avoid thinking. When Emma got home from school, she noticed the people outside immediately. "Dad, why are there cameras downstairs?" "Just some reporters," Nathan said, trying to sound casual. "They'll leave soon." "Are they here because of Lena?" Nathan glanced at Lena, who'd gone very still. "Yeah, sweetheart, they are." "Why?" "Because sometimes when people go through hard things, other people think it's their business to know about it." Emma considered this. "That's rude." "Yeah," Nathan agreed. "It is." Emma walked over to Lena and patted her arm in a gesture so unconsciously kind that Nathan's throat tightened. "Don't worry. My dad won't let them bother you." Lena smiled, though it didn't quite reach her eyes. "Thanks, Emma." That night, after Emma went to bed, Nathan and Lena sat in the living room with the TV on low. Lena was scrolling through her phone again, and Nathan could see the tension in her shoulders. "You should stop reading," he said. "I can't," Lena said. "They're saying I'm using you, that I latched onto some working-class guy to rehabilitate my image, make myself look sympathetic. That's garbage. Is it?" Lena looked at him, her eyes hollow. "Because from the outside, that's exactly what this looks like. Broken CEO finds salt-of-the-earth single dad to make herself seem human again." "You didn't find me," Nathan said. "I found you. On a bridge. In the rain. Because you looked like I felt 3 years ago. That's the truth. The rest is just noise." "The noise is loud, Nathan. Then we turn it off." Lena shook her head. "It doesn't work like that. This is my life now. Cameras and questions and people picking apart everything I do. And I dragged you into it." "You didn't drag me anywhere," Nathan said. "I chose this. I'm still choosing it." Lena's face crumpled, and she started crying, really crying, the kind of sobs that shook her whole body. Nathan moved to sit next to her, and she leaned into him, her tears soaking into his shirt. "I don't know how to do this," she said between sobs. "I don't know how to be the person they're making me into. I don't know how to live with everyone thinking I'm broken." "Then don't," Nathan said. "Don't be the person they're making you into. Be yourself, the person who built something that mattered, the person who cares about kids getting a good education, the person who makes Emma laugh. What if that person isn't enough?" "She is," Nathan said. "She's more than enough." They sat like that for a long time, Lena crying and Nathan holding her, until finally the tears slowed and she pulled back, wiping her face with the sleeve of her sweater. "I should go," she said. "Back to my apartment. Deal with this myself. You've done enough." "You're not going anywhere," Nathan said. "Not until you're ready." "Nathan, stay," he said simply. "As long as you need to." Lena looked at him, something shifting in her expression. "Why are you doing this?" Nathan thought about that. About Sarah. About the months after she died when he felt like he was drowning and Rachel had been the only thing keeping his head above water. About how it felt to be on the other side now, to be the person someone else leaned on. "Because I know what it's like to need someone," he said finally, "and I know what it's like when they show up." Lena nodded slowly. Then she said, "Thank you." The next few days were hard. The reporters didn't leave. If anything, more showed up. Nathan had to start using the building's back entrance just to avoid them, and even then, someone usually spotted him. His supervisor called, saying the warehouse was getting media calls asking about Nathan's employment, his character, whether he'd shown any signs of being involved with Lena before the bridge incident. "I'm not firing you," his supervisor said, "but I need you to understand this is becoming a distraction. Handle it." Nathan didn't know how to handle it. He couldn't make the reporters leave. He couldn't undo the leaked photos or take back Lena's breakdown. All he could do was keep showing up, to work, to Emma, to Lena. Lena, for her part, was trying. She'd started working again, reaching out to old contacts, exploring new projects. Her therapist had suggested she write a statement addressing the photos, But every draft Lena showed Nathan sounded either too defensive or too apologetic. "I don't know what they want me to say," she said one evening, laptop balanced on her knees. "That I'm sorry for being human? That mental health struggles are real? It all sounds like PR bullshit." "Then don't say anything," Nathan suggested. "I have to say something. The silence is making it worse." "Why do you have to play by their rules?" Nathan asked. "Why do you owe them an explanation?" Lena looked at him like he'd suggested something revolutionary. "Because that's how this works. You mess up, you apologize, you do the whole redemption arc thing." "But you didn't mess up," Nathan said. "You had a breakdown. That's not a crime. It's not even a mistake. It's just what happened." "Tell that to the internet." "Screw the internet," Nathan said. "You don't owe them anything." Lena smiled faintly. "You make it sound so simple." "It is simple. Not easy, but simple." The turning point came on a Wednesday afternoon. Emma's school called. Not the principal this time, but Emma's teacher, Mrs. Chen. "Mr. Cole, I wanted to give you a heads up," she said. "Some parents have been asking questions about Lena Hart, about whether she's been around Emma, whether it's appropriate given the media attention." Nathan felt his blood pressure spike. "What kind of questions?" "Concerned parent questions," Mrs. Chen said carefully. "They're worried about the photographers, about their children being caught on camera. And some of them are questioning your judgment. My judgment. Look, I think you're a great father," Mrs. Chen said. "Emma's a wonderful kid, but you need to be aware that this is creating talk. And talk can become a problem." Nathan thanked her and hung up. Then he sat on the couch and put his head in his hands. Lena found him like that when she came back from a walk she'd taken to clear her head. "What happened?" she asked. Nathan told her about the call, about the parents, the questions, the judgment. "That's it," Lena said, her voice flat. "I'm leaving. Tonight." "No," Nathan said. "Nathan, they're coming after Emma now. Your reputation, your job. I can't let that happen." "They're not coming after anyone," Nathan said. "They're just talking. People always talk." "This is different," Lena insisted. "This is hurting you, hurting Emma, and I won't be responsible for that." "You're not responsible for other people being judgmental assholes," Nathan said. "Maybe not, but I'm the reason they're judging." Nathan stood up, frustrated. "So what? You're just going to run? Go back to your apartment and let them win?" "This isn't about winning," Lena said. "This is about protecting you and Emma from my mess." "Your mess is already my mess," Nathan said. "You don't get to make that decision for me." They stared at each other, the tension thick between them. "I don't want to hurt you," Lena said quietly. "Then stop trying to leave," Nathan said. "That would hurt worse than anything the reporters could do." Lena's eyes filled with tears again. "I don't understand why you care this much." "Because I do," Nathan said. It wasn't eloquent, but it was true. They stood there in the small living room, the sounds of Millbrook filtering in through the windows, traffic, voices, the distant wail of a siren. Two broken people trying to figure out if they could hold each other up without both of them falling. Finally, Lena spoke. "Okay, I'll stay, but only if you promise me something." "What?" "If this gets worse, if it starts really affecting Emma, you tell me, and I leave. No arguments." Nathan wanted to argue right then, but he could see she needed this. Needed to feel like she had some control, some way to protect them, even if it meant leaving. "Okay," he said. "I promise." That weekend, Nathan's sister showed up unannounced. He opened the door to find Rachel standing in the hallway with her arms crossed, looking like she was ready for a fight. "We need to talk," she said. "Now's not a good time." "I don't care, let me in." Nathan sighed and stepped aside. Rachel walked into the apartment and stopped when she saw Lena sitting at the kitchen table. "You must be Lena," Rachel said, her tone neutral but not warm. "I am," Lena said, standing up. "You must be Rachel. Nathan's told me a lot about you." "Wish I could say the same," Rachel said. She turned to Nathan. "Can we talk? Privately?" They went out into the hallway, closing the door behind them. "What are you doing?" Rachel demanded immediately. "Seriously, Nathan? What are you thinking?" "I'm helping a friend. A friend who's all over the news? A friend who's got reporters camped outside your building, calling your family, making your daughter the subject of school gossip?" "It's not her fault." "I don't care whose fault it is," Rachel cut him off. "I care about Emma. I I care about you, and I'm watching you put both of those things at risk for someone you barely know. I know her well enough, Nathan said. Do you? Or do you just see someone who needs saving, and you can't help yourself because it makes you feel useful? That hit harder than Nathan expected. That's not fair, isn't it? Rachel's voice softened slightly. Nathan, you're a good person, sometimes too good, but you can't save everyone, and you can't let your need to help someone put your own kid in the crossfire. Emma's fine, Nathan said. Is she? Because I heard about the Tyler incident, and the parent complaints, and the fact that she's asking you why there are cameras outside her home. That doesn't sound fine to me. Nathan didn't have a response to that. Rachel sighed. I'm not saying Lena's a bad person. I'm not even saying you shouldn't help her. I'm just saying you need to be smart about it. Put boundaries up. Protect Emma first. I am protecting Emma, Nathan said. Are you? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you're choosing Lena over your daughter. That's not true, Nathan said. But there was a small, terrible voice in the back of his head asking if maybe it was. Rachel put a hand on his arm. I love you, and I trust you to do the right thing. Just make sure you know what the right thing is. She left, and Nathan stood in the hallway for a long moment before going back inside. Lena was still at the kitchen table, but she looked up when he entered. She's right, you know, Lena said quietly. You were listening? The walls are thin, Lena stood up. She's right, Nathan. Emma should come first, and I'm getting in the way of that. No, Nathan said. You're not. Yes, I am. And maybe Rachel's right about the other thing, too. Maybe you're just trying to save me because it makes you feel useful, makes you feel like you're doing something that matters. Nathan walked over to her. Is that what you think? That this is some ego trip for me? I don't know what to think anymore, Lena said. I just know that being around me is causing problems for you and Emma, and I can't live with that. So what are you saying? Lena looked at him, her eyes sad. I'm saying maybe I should go. Maybe we both need some space to figure out what this actually is. I know what this is, Nathan said. You're my friend, someone I care about, someone who's going through hell and needs support. And what if your sister's right? Lena asked. What if I'm taking advantage of that, taking advantage of you? You're not. How do you know? Because I know you, Nathan said, and I know me. And I know this isn't about saving anyone. It's about showing up for someone who matters. Lena shook her head slowly. I think I need to go back to my apartment, deal with my life. Let you deal with yours. Nathan felt something crack inside his chest. Is that really what you want? It's what I need, Lena said. For both of us. They stood there, the distance between them feeling suddenly enormous. Okay, Nathan said finally, if that's what you need. Lena packed her bag in silence. Emma was at a friend's house, so she didn't have to say goodbye. Maybe that was better. Nathan drove Lena back to her apartment, the reporters having finally dispersed now that there was no fresh story to chase. When they pulled up outside her building, Lena turned to him. Thank you, she said, for everything. You saved my life, Nathan, literally and figuratively. You would have figured it out, Nathan said, though he wasn't sure he believed it. Maybe, but it would have been a lot harder without you. She leaned over and kissed his cheek, brief and soft. Then she got out of the car and walked into her building without looking back. Nathan sat there for a long moment, his cheek still warm from her kiss, before driving home. The apartment felt emptier than it had in months. Nathan tried to tell himself this was for the best, that Lena needed space, that Emma needed stability, but mostly he just felt hollow. Emma noticed immediately when she came home. Where's Lena? She asked. She went back to her apartment, Nathan said. She had some things to take care of. Is she coming back? Nathan didn't know how to answer that. I'm not sure, sweetheart. Emma's face fell, and Nathan felt like the worst father in the world. That night, he lay on the couch where Lena had slept, staring at the ceiling and wondering if he'd just made a terrible mistake. If he should have fought harder for her to stay. If Rachel was right, and he'd been thinking more about Lena than about Emma. His phone buzzed. A text from Lena. I'm sorry for all of it. You deserve better than someone else's crisis. Nathan stared at the message, his fingers hovering over the keyboard. He wanted to tell her she was wrong, that she wasn't a crisis, that he missed her already. Instead, He just wrote back, "Take care of yourself." And then he set the phone down and tried not to think about how quiet the apartment had become. 3 weeks passed, and Nathan didn't hear from Lena. He told himself that was fine, that she needed space, that this was what she'd asked for. But Emma asked about her almost every day, and each time Nathan had to say he didn't know when she'd be back, something in his chest tightened a little more. Work became a refuge. The physical labor, the routine, the mindless repetition of loading and unloading, it kept his brain occupied. His coworkers had stopped asking about the news stories, mostly because Nathan had made it clear he wasn't discussing it. The reporters had moved on to other scandals, other people to dissect. Millbrook went back to being gray and unremarkable, but the apartment felt wrong. Nathan would catch himself setting out 3 plates for dinner before remembering it was just him and Emma. He'd hear a knock and feel his heart jump, only to find it was a neighbor or a delivery person. Emma had stopped asking about Lena out loud, but Nathan saw her looking at the space collages they'd made together, still taped to her bedroom wall. Rachel called every few days, always with the same careful tone that made it clear she was checking to make sure he was okay. Nathan appreciated it and resented it in equal measure. "How's Emma doing?" Rachel asked during one call. "She's fine," Nathan said. He was folding laundry on the couch, the phone wedged between his ear and shoulder. "And how are you doing?" "Also fine." "Nathan, I'm fine, Rachel, really. It was the right call. Lena needed to focus on her own life. I needed to focus on Emma. Everything's back to normal." "Normal," Rachel repeated, and Nathan could hear the skepticism in her voice. "When's the last time you slept through the night?" Nathan didn't answer that. "That's what I thought," Rachel said. "Look, I know I came down hard on you. Maybe too hard. I was worried about Emma, and I still am. But I'm also worried about you." "Don't be," Nathan said. "I'm handling it." "Handling it doesn't mean you're okay." Nathan wanted to argue, but he was too tired. "I have to go. Emma needs help with homework." He hung up before Rachel could push further. The truth was, Nathan wasn't okay. He'd spent 3 years learning how to live with Sarah's absence, learning how to be enough for Emma, learning how to exist in the space between grief and functionality. And then Lena had appeared, and for a few months the apartment had felt less empty. There had been someone else to talk to, someone else who understood what it meant to rebuild yourself from nothing. And now that was gone too. Nathan tried to tell himself it was better this way. Simpler. Emma didn't need the complication of another person in their lives, especially someone with Lena's baggage. He'd been right to let her go. But late at night, lying on the couch in the dark, he couldn't shake the feeling that he'd made a mistake. On a Thursday afternoon in early November, Nathan's supervisor pulled him aside during his break. "Got a minute?" Marcus was a heavy-set man in his 50s who'd worked at the warehouse for 20 years and had exactly zero tolerance for drama. "Sure," Nathan said, following him into the small office that smelled of coffee and old paperwork. Marcus closed the door and leaned against the desk. "Corporate's doing layoffs, end-of-the-quarter budget cuts. I fought to keep you on the list, but I can't promise anything." Nathan felt his stomach drop. "When?" "Decisions come down in 2 weeks. You'll know before Thanksgiving." Marcus looked uncomfortable. "I'm sorry, man. I know you've got the kid and everything, but the higher-ups are looking at numbers, and with all the media attention earlier, your name flagged." "That wasn't my fault," Nathan said. "I know, but it made waves, and waves make corporate nervous. Just giving you a heads up so you can start looking for backup options." Nathan left the office feeling like the ground had shifted under his feet. He couldn't lose this job. The pay was barely enough as it was, and without it, he didn't know how he'd make rent, let alone everything else. His savings account had maybe $300 in it. Emma needed new winter boots. The car he'd borrowed from Rachel needed to be returned soon, and his own was still broken down in the building's parking lot. He finished his shift on autopilot, his mind racing through impossible math. If he got laid off, unemployment would cover maybe half his expenses. He'd need to find something fast, but jobs in Millbrook weren't exactly plentiful, especially for someone whose resume consisted of warehouse work and a high school diploma. When he got home, Emma was at the kitchen table doing homework, her tongue sticking out slightly in concentration the way it always did when she was working hard. "Hey, kiddo," Nathan said, trying to sound normal. "How was school?" "Good. We're learning about fractions. I hate fractions." "Yeah, they're tricky," Nathan said. He started pulling together ingredients for dinner, pasta again, because it was cheap and Emma would actually eat it. Dad? Yeah? Are you sad? Nathan turned to look at her. What makes you ask that? Emma shrugged, not meeting his eyes. You've been quiet, like you were after Mom died, before you got less sad. Nathan's heart broke a little. He walked over and crouched next to her chair. I'm not sad like that, Em. I promise. Just tired from work. Do you miss Lena? There it was. Nathan should have known Emma wouldn't just let it go. Yeah, he admitted. I do. Me too, Emma said. She was nice, and she made you smile more. Nathan didn't know what to say to that. He pulled Emma into a hug and she wrapped her small arms around his neck. It's okay to miss people, Emma said into his shoulder, repeating words Nathan had told her about Sarah 100 times. You told me that. You're right, Nathan said. It is okay. That night, after Emma went to bed, Nathan pulled out his phone and stared at Lena's number. He deleted their text thread a week ago in a moment of frustration, but the number was still saved. His thumb hovered over it. He didn't call. Instead, he opened his laptop and started searching for jobs. There weren't many. A couple retail positions that would pay less than the warehouse. Some restaurant work that would require night shifts he couldn't manage with Emma. A construction job that required experience he didn't have. He was about to close the laptop when an email notification popped up. The sender was an address he didn't recognize, but the subject line made him pause. Bridge, Learn Educational Initiative. Nathan opened it. Mr. Cole, my name is Dr. Patricia Morrison, and I run the Community Learning Center here in Millbrook. I recently spoke with Lena Hart about a potential partnership to bring educational programming to underserved children in our area. She mentioned you might be interested in learning more about volunteer opportunities. We're specifically looking for mentors and tutors for after-school programs. The time commitment is flexible, and we provide all training. If you're interested, I'd love to set up a time to talk. Best regards, Dr. Patricia Morrison. Nathan read the email twice, his chest tight. Lena had recommended him. Even after everything, even after 3 weeks of silence, she'd thought of him. He closed the laptop without responding. He was too tired, too stressed about the potential layoff, too uncertain about everything. He'd deal with it later, but he couldn't stop thinking about it. 2 days later, on a Saturday morning, Nathan was at the laundromat downstairs doing Emma's laundry when someone knocked on one of the washing machines to get his attention. He looked up to find an older woman he vaguely recognized from the building watching him. You're Nathan Cole, right? She asked. Yeah, Nathan said warily. He'd had enough of strangers asking questions. I'm Helen. I live on the 3rd floor. I wanted to thank you. Nathan blinked. For what? My granddaughter goes to Millbrook Elementary, same class as your Emma. She told me what happened with that Tyler boy, and she told me your daughter stood up for her mother. Helen smiled. That takes courage. And I wanted you to know, not all the parents think poorly of you. Some of us think you're doing a damn good job. Nathan felt something loosen in his chest. Thank you. That means a lot. And that woman who stayed with you, Helen continued, Lena Hart. I read about her. What they did to her company, what the media did to her, that wasn't right. You helped her when she needed it. That says something about who you are. I just did what anyone would do, Nathan said. No, Helen said firmly. Most people would have walked past. You didn't. That matters. She left before Nathan could respond, but her words stayed with him. That afternoon, Nathan finally responded to Dr. Morrison's email. They set up a meeting for the following Tuesday. The Community Learning Center was in a converted church building on the east side of Millbrook, the kind of neighborhood where chain-link fences surrounded small yards and corner stores had bars on the windows. Inside, the space had been transformed into bright classrooms and activity areas. Children's artwork covered the walls. Dr. Morrison was a black woman in her 60s with gray hair pulled back in a neat bun and eyes that seemed to see right through people. Nathan, she said, shaking his hand, thank you for coming. Can I get you coffee? They sat in her small office, and Dr. Morrison explained the center's work. They provided after-school programs, tutoring, meals, and mentorship for kids whose parents worked multiple jobs or couldn't afford extracurricular activities. Lena told me about your daughter, Dr. Morrison said, and about your situation. She thought you might understand what these kids are going through, The challenges of having a parent who's stretched thin, trying to do everything alone. She said that? Nathan asked. She spoke very highly of you, Dr. Morrison said. She also mentioned she's working on developing new educational software specifically for our population. Free, accessible, designed to actually help kids learn rather than just test well. She's funding it herself. Nathan felt something shift in his chest. I didn't know that. She's been working with us for about 3 weeks now. Mostly remotely, but she came in last week to meet some of the kids. They loved her. Dr. Morrison smiled. She's different than I expected. The media painted her one way, but in person, she's just someone who wants to do something meaningful. Nathan thought about Lena sitting in his apartment, talking about her company, about how she'd wanted to help kids who needed it most, how that had been taken from her. The volunteer position, Nathan said. What would it involve? 2 afternoons a week? Helping kids with homework, maybe coaching a reading group or just being someone they can talk to. We're not looking for teachers, just stable adults who show up consistently and care. Nathan thought about his potential layoff, about the uncertainty of everything. But he also thought about Emma, about how someone like Dr. Morrison's center could have helped him in those first terrible months after Sarah died. I'm interested, he said, but I might have some schedule changes coming up. Work situation is complicated. We're flexible, Dr. Morrison said. And honestly, Nathan, even if you can only do 1 afternoon a week, that's valuable. These kids need people who show up. That's the hardest part, getting adults to consistently show up. They talked for another 30 minutes, and by the time Nathan left, he'd agreed to start the following week. Tuesday and Thursday afternoons, right after he picked Emma up from school. Dr. Morrison said Emma was welcome to come with him, do her homework in one of the classrooms while he worked with the other kids. On the walk home, Nathan's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Hi, Nathan. It's Lena. Dr. Morrison told me you met with her today. I hope it's okay that I gave her your name. I thought you might like the work, and she really needs good mentors. No pressure, though. L. Nathan stared at the message. She'd added the initial at the end, like he might not know who Lena was. Like 3 weeks had created that much distance. He typed back, It's fine. Good, actually. Thanks for thinking of me. He watched the 3 dots appear and disappear several times before her response came through. How have you been? Nathan almost laughed. How had he been? Worried about losing his job, missing her more than he wanted to admit, watching his daughter ask questions he didn't know how to answer. Okay, he wrote. You? Better. Therapy is helping, and the new project is good. Feels like I'm doing something that matters again. That's great, Nathan wrote, and he meant it. Another pause, then, I miss Emma. Nathan's throat tightened. She misses you too. And you? Nathan stared at those 2 words for a long time. The honest answer was yes, he missed her, missed their conversations, missed having another adult in the apartment, missed the way she made Emma laugh, missed feeling like he wasn't doing everything alone. Yeah, he finally wrote, I do. The response came quickly this time. Can I see you, both of you? Maybe coffee or something. No pressure. I'd like to see how you're doing. Nathan thought about Rachel's warnings, about the media circus, about all the reasons this was complicated. Then he thought about Helen in the laundromat, about Dr. Morrison talking about Lena with genuine respect, about Emma's drawing still on the wall. Rosie's? Tomorrow at 2? I'll be there, Nathan told Emma that night at dinner. She was so excited she nearly knocked over her juice. Really? We get to see Lena? Yeah, sweetheart, just for coffee. She wants to catch up. Emma threw her arms around Nathan's waist. Thank you, Dad. The next day, Nathan was nervous in a way he hadn't been since his first date with Sarah 15 years ago. He changed shirts twice, told himself he was being ridiculous, then changed again. Emma wore her favorite purple dress with the dinosaur leggings, which Nathan had learned not to question. Lena was already at Rosie's when they arrived, sitting in their usual booth. She looked different, better rested, her hair cut shorter in a way that made her look younger. When she saw Emma, her whole face lit up. Emma! Lena stood, and Emma ran over to hug her. I missed you, Emma said into Lena's sweater. I missed you too, kiddo. Nathan walked over, and Lena looked up at him. For a second, they just stood there, awkward in a way they'd never been before. Hi, Lena said. Hi, Nathan replied. They sat down, and Emma immediately launched into a detailed explanation of everything Lena had missed: the fractions unit at school, the new book she was reading, how she'd finally mastered the monkey bars. Lena listened with genuine interest, asking questions and laughing in all the right places. Nathan watched them, something warm spreading through his chest. Eventually, Emma went to look at the ancient jukebox in the corner, leaving Nathan and Lena alone. "She's gotten taller," Lena said, watching Emma. "Kids do that," Nathan said. Lena turned back to him. "You look tired. Work's been rough. Might be getting laid off." Lena's face fell. "Nathan, I'm sorry. Is there anything I can do?" "Not unless you're hiring," Nathan said, trying to make it a joke. "Actually," Lena said slowly, "I might be. The new project. I'm going to need people to help run it eventually. Community outreach, program coordination. It's not glamorous, and the pay wouldn't be great at first, but it's stable." Nathan shook his head. "I can't take charity." "It's not charity. It's a job offer. You'd be good at it, Nathan. You understand the kids we're trying to help because you've lived that life. And Dr. Morrison thinks you'd be great." "You talked to her about this?" "I talked to her about a lot of things," Lena admitted, "including how much I screwed up by leaving the way I did." Nathan looked at her. "You didn't screw up. You did what you needed to do." "Did I?" Lena leaned forward. "Because from where I'm sitting now, it feels like I ran away. Like I let the media and the pressure and my own fear convince me that I was a burden to you. But I wasn't, was I?" "No," Nathan said. "You weren't." "Then why did you let me leave?" Nathan took a breath. "Because I thought that's what you needed. And because my sister got in my head about putting Emma first, and I started second-guessing everything, wondering if maybe I was being selfish, choosing to help you instead of protecting my daughter from the fallout." "Were you?" Lena asked. "Being selfish?" "I don't know," Nathan said honestly. "Maybe, but I think Rachel was wrong. I think you being in our lives was good for Emma, good for me, and I think I let fear make me push you away." Lena reached across the table and took his hand. "I was scared too. Scared that I was ruining your life. Scared that you were only helping me because you felt obligated. Scared that I was taking advantage of your kindness." "You weren't," Nathan said. "I know that now. My therapist helped me see it. You weren't trying to save me. You were just being my friend, and I needed that more than I needed space." Emma came back to the table, oblivious to the weight of the conversation she'd interrupted. "Can I get a hot chocolate?" she asked. "Sure, sweetheart," Nathan said. Lena ordered for all of them. Hot chocolate for Emma, coffee for her and Nathan, a slice of apple pie to share. They fell into easier conversation, the tension from earlier dissipating. Lena told them about the software she was developing, how it was designed to adapt to each kid's learning style rather than forcing everyone into the same mold. "The big companies don't care about that," she explained. "They want products that scale, that work for the largest number of people. But that leaves behind the kids who learn differently, the kids who need more support." "Like the kids at Dr. Morrison's center," Nathan said. "Exactly. And that's who this is for. Not for profit, not for investors, just for kids who need it." Emma listened, fascinated. "Can I try it when it's done?" "You'll be one of my first beta testers," Lena promised. They stayed at Rosie's for over 2 hours. When they finally left, Emma hugged Lena goodbye and made her promise to come over soon. "Can she, Dad?" Emma asked. Nathan looked at Lena. "Yeah, she can." Nathan walked Lena to her car. The sun was setting, painting Millbrook's gray buildings in shades of orange and pink. "Thank you for this," Lena said, "for giving me another chance." "You didn't need another chance," Nathan said. "You just needed to come back." Lena smiled, and it was real this time, reaching her eyes. "Dr. Morrison's offering you that job, by the way. It's real. 20 hours a week to start, working with the kids, helping coordinate programs. The pay is $12 an hour. Not much, but it's something." "Lena, just think about it," she said. "No pressure. But if the warehouse lays you off, you've got options. And I promise this isn't charity. We really do need someone like you." Nathan thought about it. $12 an hour wasn't great, but combined with part-time work somewhere else, it might be enough. And the work itself, helping kids who reminded him of Emma, of himself, That felt right in a way loading trucks never had. "I'll think about it," he said. "Good." Lena hesitated, then stepped forward and hugged him. Nathan hugged her back, and for a moment they just stood there in the fading light. "I really did miss you," Lena said quietly. "I really did miss you too," Nathan replied. When she pulled back, her eyes were bright. "Same time next week?" "Yeah, same time." Nathan watched her drive away, then walked back to where Emma was waiting by the diner entrance. "Is Lena coming back for real this time?" Emma asked as they started walking home. "I think so," Nathan said. "Good," Emma said, slipping her hand into his. "I like when she's around. You're happier." Nathan squeezed her hand. "Yeah, kiddo, I am." The layoff notification came 3 days later. Nathan's name was on the list. His last day would be the Friday before Thanksgiving. He called Dr. Morrison that afternoon and accepted the job. "When can you start?" she asked. "Monday?" "Monday works. Welcome aboard, Nathan." He told Emma that night, trying to frame it positively. A new job, helping kids, more flexible hours. Emma seemed excited, though Nathan could tell she was also worried. "Will we be okay?" she asked. "Without the warehouse job?" "We'll be okay," Nathan said, hoping it was true. "I'm going to pick up some shifts at the grocery store, too, and we'll figure it out. We always do." Emma nodded, trusting him in a way that made Nathan's chest ache. He texted Lena, "Took the job, starting Monday. Thanks for believing I could do it." Her response came immediately. "You're going to be amazing. The kids are lucky to have you." That Saturday, Lena came over for dinner. Nathan made spaghetti again. It was becoming their thing, and Emma set the table with extra care, putting out the nice plates they almost never used. Over dinner, Lena told them about her mother, how they'd finally talked, really talked, for the first time in months. How her mother had apologized for not being more supportive, for saying, "I told you so," instead of, "I'm here for you." "She's driving up next weekend," Lena said, "wants to meet the people who've been helping me. That includes you two, if you're okay with it." "We'd love to meet her," Nathan said. After Emma went to bed, Nathan and Lena sat on the couch with mugs of tea, the TV on low in the background. "I've been thinking," Lena said, "about what comes next, for me." "Yeah? I don't want to go back to the corporate world. The fundraising, the investors, the endless pressure to scale and monetize. I just want to do good work, help kids, build something that matters without worrying about whether it's profitable enough." "That sounds right," Nathan said. "But it's scary," Lena admitted. "I spent 10 years defining myself by success metrics, revenue, users, growth. Now I'm trying to define myself by something less tangible, impact, purpose, and I don't always know if I'm doing it right." "I don't think there's a right way," Nathan said. "I think you just do what feels meaningful and hope it helps someone." Lena looked at him. "When did you get so wise?" "I'm not wise. I'm just a guy who's made a lot of mistakes and learned from most of them." "Well, your mistakes must have been better than mine," Lena said. They sat in comfortable silence for a while. Then Lena spoke again. "Can I ask you something?" "Sure." "What are we doing?" "You and me." Nathan's heart rate picked up. "What do you mean?" "I mean, are we friends? Are we more than that? Are we just two broken people who found each other at the right time?" Lena turned to face him. "Because I need to know, Nathan. I need to know what this is so I don't mess it up again." Nathan thought about that night on the bridge, about the months since, about how empty the apartment had felt without her. "I don't know," he said honestly. "I know you're important to me. I know Emma cares about you. I know I'm happier when you're around, but I also know we're both still figuring ourselves out, and I don't want to rush into something we're not ready for." Lena nodded slowly. "That's fair, but I also don't want to lose you again," Nathan added. "So whatever this is, I want to keep doing it, keep showing up, keep figuring it out together." "Together," Lena repeated, smiling slightly. "I like the sound of that." She leaned her head on his shoulder, and Nathan wrapped an arm around her. They stayed like that until Lena's eyes started to drift closed. "You should get home," Nathan said gently. "It's late." "Can I stay?" Lena asked, her voice drowsy. "On the couch. I just don't want to drive right now." "Yeah," Nathan said. "You can stay." He got her a blanket and pillow, and Lena curled up on the couch. Nathan stood there for a moment, watching her settle in, and felt something that had been broken in him start to heal. Whatever they were building, friendship, family, something more, it was real. It was messy and imperfect and uncertain, but it was real. And that was enough. Nathan woke up on Sunday morning to the smell of pancakes and the sound of Emma's laughter coming from the kitchen. For a disoriented moment, he thought he was dreaming. Then he remembered. Lena had stayed over. He walked into the kitchen to find them at the stove together again, Lena guiding Emma's hand as she flipped a pancake. This time it actually landed in the pan instead of on the floor. "Dad, look! I did it!" Emma beamed at him. "I see that," Nathan said, his voice still rough with sleep. "Nice work." Lena glanced over her shoulder at him, and something passed between them, an understanding, a quiet acknowledgement that this felt right. Normal. Like maybe it could be their actual life instead of just a moment stolen from the uncertainty. They ate breakfast together, and afterward, Lena helped Emma with a book report she'd been putting off while Nathan did the dishes. He could hear them at the kitchen table, Lena asking questions that made Emma think without making her feel stupid. "What do you think the author was trying to say about friendship?" Lena asked. Emma was quiet for a moment. "That sometimes friends fight, but they still care about each other? That's good. Can you think of an example from the book?" Nathan listened to them work through it together, and he thought about how naturally Lena had slipped back into their lives. How Emma had lit up when she'd returned. How the apartment felt warmer with her in it. Later that afternoon, after Lena left with promises to come back for dinner on Tuesday, Emma cornered Nathan in the living room. "Are you and Lena going to get married?" she asked bluntly. Nathan nearly choked on his coffee. "What? No, we're not. Where did that come from?" Emma shrugged. "She's here a lot, and she makes you smile like Mom used to, and she's nice to me. So I thought maybe you'd get married and then she'd live here all the time." Nathan set down his coffee and pulled Emma onto the couch next to him. "Lena and I are friends, good friends, but that doesn't mean we're getting married. And even if we were, that's something that would take a long time, years probably. But you like her, right?" Nathan considered lying, then decided Emma deserved honesty. "Yeah, I like her." "Does she like you?" "I think so." "Then why can't she just move in?" Emma asked with the straightforward logic of a 6-year-old. "We have space." "It's more complicated than that, sweetheart. Adult relationships are—" Nathan paused, searching for words that would make sense. "There's something you have to build slowly. Make sure it's right before you make big changes." Emma thought about this. "Okay, but when you know it's right, can she move in then?" "Maybe," Nathan said. "We'll see." Emma seemed satisfied with that answer, which was a relief because Nathan didn't have better ones. Monday morning, Nathan started his new job at the Community Learning Center. Dr. Morrison showed him around, introduced him to the other staff. 3 teachers, 2 teaching assistants, and a rotating crew of volunteers. The kids started arriving around 3, filtering in from various schools in the neighborhood. Nathan's first assignment was working with a group of 4th graders on reading comprehension. There were 5 of them, ranging in ability from a boy named Marcus, who read at a 2nd grade level, to a girl named Jasmine, who was already tackling middle school books but needed help with analysis. "Okay," Nathan said, sitting down at the table with them. "Who wants to tell me what we're reading today?" Marcus slumped in his chair. "This is stupid. I'm not good at reading." "That's not true," Nathan said. "You're good at reading where you are right now. We're just working on getting you good at reading the next level." "What if I can't?" "Then we keep trying until you can. That's how it works. Nobody starts out good at stuff. You just keep practicing until it gets easier." Marcus looked skeptical, but he opened his book. They worked through a passage about dolphins, stopping to talk about words Marcus didn't know, asking questions to make sure everyone understood what they'd read. It was slower than Nathan expected, more challenging to keep all 5 kids engaged at once. But by the end of the hour, Marcus had read 3 pages, halting and uncertain, but he'd done it. "See?" Nathan said. "You did it." "It was hard," Marcus said. "Yeah, but you still did it. That's what matters." Over the next few weeks, Nathan fell into a rhythm with the job. He picked Emma up from school, brought her to the center with him, and while he worked with the kids, she did her homework or helped the younger children with art projects. She seemed to like it, being around other kids, feeling useful. The work was harder than loading boxes had been, in different ways. It required patience Nathan didn't always have, creativity he had to dig for, an emotional investment that left him drained at the end of each day. But it also felt meaningful in a way the warehouse never had. Lena came by the center sometimes, sitting in on sessions, taking notes for her software development. The kids loved her. She had a way of talking to them that was respectful without being condescending, and she remembered details, asking Marcus about his little sister, checking in with Jasmine about the book she'd been excited about last week. "You're good at this," Nathan told her one afternoon after the kids had gone home. "So are you," Lena said. "Marcus has gone up almost a full reading level since you started. Dr. Morrison showed me his assessment scores." "That's all him. I'm just showing up." "That's the whole job," Lena said. "Showing up consistently. You'd be surprised how many people can't manage that." Nathan thought about the years after Sarah died, how hard it had been just to keep showing up for Emma when everything in him wanted to shut down, how he'd done it anyway because he didn't have a choice. "I had good practice," he said. Thanksgiving came, and Rachel invited them to her house for dinner like she did every year. This time, Nathan asked if he could bring Lena. There was a pause on the other end of the phone. Then Rachel said, "You're still seeing her?" "We're friends," Nathan said. "Good friends. And she doesn't have family nearby. I thought it would be nice." Another pause. "Okay. Yeah, bring her." "You're not going to give her the third degree, are you?" "I'm going to be polite," Rachel said, "but I reserve the right to judge her silently." "Fair enough." Thanksgiving dinner was chaotic in the way family gatherings always were. Rachel's 3 kids, ages 8, 10, and 12, immediately pulled Emma into their orbit, and within minutes they were all running around the backyard shrieking while the adults tried to have conversations over the noise. Rachel's husband, Tom, was easygoing and friendly, asking Lena about her work without any of the probing questions Nathan had worried about. Rachel was more reserved, watching Lena carefully, but she was polite. It was during dessert, when the kids were occupied with pie, and the men had wandered outside to look at Tom's new grill, that Rachel finally pulled Lena aside. Nathan watched through the kitchen window as they talked on the back porch. He couldn't hear what they were saying, but he could read Rachel's body language, arms crossed, expression serious. Lena stood with her hands in her pockets, listening and occasionally responding. After about 10 minutes, they came back inside. Rachel's expression had softened slightly. "Everything okay?" Nathan asked. Nathan struts. "Fine," Rachel said. She looked at Lena. "I'm glad you came, and I'm sorry for being cautious. I was just worried about my brother." "You don't need to apologize," Lena said. "I'd be cautious too if our positions were reversed. Nathan and Emma are worth protecting." Rachel nodded, and something in her posture relaxed. "Yeah, they are." On the drive home, Emma fell asleep in the back seat, and Nathan glanced at Lena in the passenger seat. "What did Rachel say to you?" Lena smiled slightly. "She asked me what my intentions were. With you. With them, Emma." "And what did you tell her?" "That I don't know exactly what we're doing, but I know I care about you both. And that I'm not going anywhere unless you tell me to." "What did she say to that?" "She said good, and that if I hurt either of you, she knows where I live." Lena laughed softly. "I like her. She's protective. That's good. She's been that way since we were kids," Nathan said. "Always looking out for me, even when I didn't need it." "Everyone needs it sometimes," Lena said. They drove in comfortable silence for a while. Then Lena spoke again. "My mother's coming next weekend, Saturday afternoon. She wants to meet you and Emma." Nathan's hands tightened slightly on the steering wheel. "That's a big step." "I know, but she's important to me, and so are you. I want the people I care about to know each other." "Okay," Nathan said. "Saturday works." Lena's mother, Carol, arrived at Nathan's apartment at 2 o'clock on Saturday with a homemade apple pie and a nervous smile. She was in her early 60s with gray-streaked hair and Lena's same sharp eyes. "You must be Nathan," she said, shaking his hand firmly. "And this must be Emma. Lena's told me so much about you both." Emma shook her hand solemnly, then immediately asked, "Did you really make that pie yourself?" "I did," Carol said. "It's your mom's favorite. She always asked for it when she was your age." "My mom died," Emma said matter-of-factly. "But Lena makes us pancakes sometimes." Carol's expression softened. "I'm sorry about your mom, sweetheart. I bet she made good pancakes too." "She made really good grilled cheese," Emma said. Dad tries, but it's not the same. Hey, Nathan protested mildly, and Emma giggled. They had coffee and pie. Carol's was excellent, and talked. Carol asked Nathan about his work at the Learning Center, clearly already briefed by Lena, but wanting to hear it from him. She asked Emma about school, about her friends, about what she liked to read. After a while, Carol and Lena went for a walk, leaving Nathan and Emma alone. I like her, Emma announced. She's nice like Lena. Yeah, Nathan agreed. She is. When Carol and Lena came back an hour later, both of them had been crying but were smiling. I'm staying at a hotel nearby, Carol said as she got ready to leave. But I'd love to have dinner tomorrow before I drive back. All of you. My treat. They agreed, and after Carol left, Nathan looked at Lena questioningly. We talked about a lot of things, Lena said. About the company, about that night on the bridge, about how I'm doing now, and about you, about what you did for me. I didn't do anything special, Nathan said. You stopped, Lena said simply. When everyone else walked past, you stopped. You stayed. You let me into your life even when it was complicated and messy and probably a bad idea. That's everything, Nathan. That's everything. Her voice broke on the last word, and Nathan pulled her into a hug. Emma, sensing the emotion, wrapped her arms around both of them, creating a small circle in the middle of Nathan's living room. They stood like that for a long moment, three people who'd found each other in the wreckage and decided to hold on. December came with the first snow of the season. The Learning Center hosted a winter celebration, and Lena's software had its beta launch, a simple program that adapted to each student's learning pace and style, providing personalized lessons and encouragement. The kids at the center were the first testers. Marcus, the fourth grader who'd been struggling with reading, completed his first chapter book using the program. He brought it to show Nathan, his face bright with pride. I finished it, he said. The whole thing. That's amazing, Marcus. I'm proud of you. The computer lady helped, Marcus said, meaning Lena's program. But you helped too. You didn't give up on me even when I was bad at it. You were never bad at it, Nathan said. You were just learning. There's a difference. Marcus smiled and ran off to show his book to the other kids, and Nathan felt something settle in his chest. This was why he was here. These moments when a kid realized they could do something they didn't think was possible. That evening, after the celebration ended and the center emptied out, Nathan found Lena in Dr. Morrison's office, looking at feedback forms from the teachers. They love it, Lena said, looking up at him. Not just the kids, the teachers too. They're saying it's actually making a difference. Of course it is, Nathan said. You built it for the right reasons, to help kids who needed it. Lena set down the papers and stood up. She walked over to Nathan and took his hands. I've been thinking, she said, about what you said on Thanksgiving, about building things slowly, making sure they're right. Yeah? I think we've been building something, Lena said. You and me and Emma. Not perfectly, not smoothly, but we've been building it anyway. And I think it's right. I think this is right. Nathan's heart was pounding. What are you saying? I'm saying I don't want to just be your friend anymore, Lena said. I want to be more than that. I want to be someone who stays. Someone who's part of your life, part of Emma's life, for real. Not just visiting, not just helping out, actually part of it. Lena, I know it's complicated, she continued. I know we both have baggage, and I know Emma comes first, and I know we're both still figuring ourselves out. But I also know that I love being with you, both of you, and I think maybe you feel the same way. Nathan looked at her, really looked at her. This woman who'd been standing on a bridge in the rain 6 months ago, looking like the world had ended, who'd sat in his apartment crying about losing her company, her identity, everything she'd built, who'd left because she thought she was hurting him, then come back because she realized they needed each other. I do, he said. Feel the same way. I have for a while now. So what do we do about it? Lena asked. Nathan thought about Emma asking if Lena would move in, about the way his apartment felt empty without her, about how naturally she fit into their lives. We take it one day at a time, he said. Like everything else. We show up. We figure it out as we go. And we don't run when it gets hard. I can do that, Lena said. Yeah, Nathan said, pulling her closer. Me too. He kissed her then, soft and careful, and Lena kissed him back. It wasn't perfect or magical or like the movies. It was just real. Two people who'd been broken finding something whole in each other. When they pulled apart, Lena was smiling. I should probably ask Emma if this is okay, she said. I don't want to just assume. She asked me 3 weeks ago when you were moving in, Nathan said. I think she'll be fine with it. They told Emma over dinner the next night. Nathan had been nervous about how to phrase it, but Emma took it completely in stride. So Lena's your girlfriend now? She asked. Yeah, Nathan said. Is that okay with you? Emma looked at Lena, then back at Nathan. Does this mean she'll be here more? If you want me to be, Lena said. Yeah, Emma said. I want that. Then she paused. But she's not going to be my new mom, right? Because I already have a mom. She's just not here anymore. Nathan's throat tightened. No, sweetheart. Nobody's replacing your mom. Lena's Lena. That's different. Okay, Emma said, satisfied. Can I have more spaghetti? And just like that, it was settled. Over the next few months, Lena gradually moved more of her things into the apartment. Not all at once. She kept her place for a while, using it as an office for the software project, but slowly, naturally, until one day Nathan realized half the closet was hers, and there was a second toothbrush in the bathroom, and he couldn't remember the last time she'd slept anywhere but in his bed. It wasn't always easy. They had arguments about small things, how to load the dishwasher, whether Emma should be allowed to watch certain movies, what time constituted too late for a 6-year-old to be awake. But they worked through it, learning each other's rhythms, figuring out how to be a family. The Learning Center expanded its programs, and Lena's software was picked up by 3 other community centers in neighboring towns. She hired a small team to help manage it, keeping it nonprofit, keeping the mission focused on kids who needed it most. Nathan got promoted to program coordinator, which came with a small raise and more responsibility. It still wasn't much money, but combined with Lena's income and careful budgeting, they were okay. More than okay. Emma thrived. She made friends at the Learning Center, started reading 2 grade levels above her class, and stopped asking about Tyler Henderson, who'd moved to a different school after his parents pulled him out of Millbrook Elementary. One evening in late spring, almost a year after that night on the bridge, Nathan and Lena sat on the fire escape outside the apartment while Emma slept inside. The city spread out below them, gray and unremarkable, but the sunset painted everything gold. I've been thinking about that night, Lena said, when you found me on the bridge. Yeah? I was so sure everything was over, that I'd lost everything that mattered, and there was no point in continuing. And then you showed up and refused to leave. And it didn't fix everything. It didn't make the pain go away or undo what happened to my company. But it gave me a reason to get through that night. And then the next one. And the next one. You would have figured it out, Nathan said. Eventually. Maybe, Lena said. But it would have been a lot harder alone. And I think that's the point. We're not supposed to do it alone. All of it. Grief, loss, rebuilding. It's easier when someone shows up and sits with you in it. Nathan thought about the years after Sarah died. About how Rachel had shown up with groceries and refused to leave. About how that simple act of presence had kept him alive when he didn't want to be. Yeah, he said, it is. And now I get to be that person for someone else, Lena continued. With the software, with the kids at the center, I get to show up for them the way you showed up for me. That feels right. Like maybe all the pain and loss and failure was leading to this. I don't know if it works like that, Nathan said. I don't think Sarah died so I could learn to be a better father or so I could meet you. I think bad things just happen, and we do our best to survive them. And sometimes, if we're lucky, we find people who help us do that. You don't believe in meant to be? Lena asked. I believe in showing up, Nathan said. I believe in choosing to care about people even when it's hard. I believe in building something meaningful from the wreckage. But I don't think it's destiny or fate or part of some grand plan. I think it's just people making choices, choosing each other, choosing to stay. Lena leaned her head on his shoulder. I like that better anyway. Means we chose this. Means we keep choosing it. Yeah, Nathan said, we do. They sat in silence for a while, watching the sun disappear behind the buildings. Then Lena spoke again. Emma asked me something yesterday. What? She asked if I loved you. Nathan's heart skipped. What did you say? I said yes, Lena said simply. Because I do. I love you, Nathan. I love Emma. I love this messy, imperfect life we're building together. And I wanted you to know that. Nathan turned to look at her, seeing the vulnerability in her eyes, the courage it took to say those words after everything she'd been through. "I love you too," he said. "Both of you. More than I thought I'd ever love anyone again after Sarah died." "She'd be okay with this, wouldn't she?" Lena asked quietly. "With us?" Nathan thought about Sarah, her laugh, her kindness, the way she'd always wanted him to be happy. "Yeah, she would. She'd want Emma to have someone who cared about her. She'd want me not to be alone. She'd like you. I wish I could have met her." "Me too." They kissed then, soft and slow. And Nathan thought about how strange life was. How you could lose everything and somehow still find something worth keeping. How the worst night of someone's life could become the beginning of something better. How two broken people could create something whole together. Inside, Emma stirred in her sleep, and Nathan heard her call out softly. He started to get up, but Lena touched his arm. "I'll go," she said. Nathan watched through the window as Lena went to Emma's room, heard the quiet murmur of voices, saw Lena tucking the blanket around Emma the way he'd taught her. Emma reached up and hugged her, and Lena hugged back, and Nathan felt his chest go tight with something that felt like gratitude. This was his life now. Not perfect, not what he'd planned, but real and messy and full of people who'd chosen each other despite the odds. Lena came back out to the fire escape and settled next to him again. "Bad dream," she said. "She's okay now." "Thank you," Nathan said. "For what?" "For staying. For choosing us. For being here even when it was complicated." "Thank you for letting me," Lena said. "For stopping on that bridge, for not walking past." "I couldn't," Nathan said honestly, "even if I'd wanted to." "I'm glad," Lena said. "I'm really glad." They sat there together as night fell over Millbrook, two people who'd found each other in the dark and decided to hold on. It wasn't a fairy tale ending. There would be more hard days ahead, more struggles, more moments when they'd have to choose each other all over again. But that was okay. That was life. You didn't get to skip the hard parts or avoid the pain. You just got to choose who you went through it with. And Nathan had chosen Lena, and Lena had chosen him, and Emma had chosen both of them. That was enough. More than enough. It was everything. Inside the apartment, Emma slept soundly, dreaming whatever dreams 6-year-olds dream. Outside, the city hummed with life. Cars passing, voices carrying through the night, the world continuing its endless rotation. And on the fire escape, Nathan and Lena sat together in the gathering darkness, not afraid of what came next because they knew they'd face it together. Sometimes salvation didn't come from having all the answers or fixing everything that was broken. Sometimes it just came from having someone who refused to leave. Someone who showed up and stayed and helped you remember that even in the deepest dark, you weren't alone. That night on the bridge, Nathan had given Lena a reason to keep going, but she'd given him something too. A reminder that his life could still hold space for someone new, that Emma could have people beyond just him who cared, that grief didn't have to be the end of the story. They'd both been standing on different bridges, looking down at different kinds of darkness, and they'd both chosen to step back, to try one more day, to see what might be possible if they just held on a little longer. And here they were. Not healed, exactly. Not fixed. But living. Building. Choosing each other every single day. That was the secret, Nathan realized. Life didn't wait until you were ready or whole or healed to move forward. It just kept going, kept demanding that you show up and participate. And you could either face it alone, or you could let people in. Let them see your mess, your pain, your broken pieces. Let them help carry the weight. It was terrifying, but it was also the only way to really live. Nathan reached over and took Lena's hand, and she squeezed back. And for that moment, everything was exactly as it needed to be. Broken people, building something beautiful. Not despite the cracks, but because of them. Because that's where the light gets in.